since 1998, I've run conferences that have involved theologians and philosophers and others, but also civil servants and journalists. Part of the point of which is so that academics can actually learn from those on the practical front line how things look from that end. But also part of the purpose is to help clarify the thinking of public decision makers. So I've run a number of conferences, most of them small scale, because small scale is better for that kind of conversation.
Around what kind of questions?
The very first one here in Oxford was on, it was called Burying the Past, Making Peace and Doing Justice After Civil Conflict. And we had speakers talking about the peace process in Northern Ireland, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, dealing with the communist past in East Germany, and also with a repressive past in Guatemala. And since then, we've done conferences on military intervention for humanitarian purposes, the ethics of intelligence gathering, the ethics of legalizing assisted suicide, the ethics of nuclear deterrence. Those are the ones that come to mind.
In those kind of contexts, why is a civil servant or a military official interested in hearing what theology or Christian ethics has to say? I mean, I can see the benefit for the academic to hear from on-the-ground, frontline people who are doing the hard work.
Yep.
But what about the other direction? Why would they be interested not only in academics, but in specifically theologians or Christian ethics, do you think?
I have quite a number of friends who work in government, and I find them to be quite as morally and sometimes spiritually serious as academics. I say that simply because I think academics often have a rather cynical view of those in government, and my view is not cynical. I think people in government are open to receiving help from whatever quarter. Certainly my experience has been that offering services like gathering people together to discuss a certain topic of public policy as a theologian hasn't put people off coming to take part. Of course, if I exploited the situation to bash them with the Bible or to tell them why they should be a Christian, they might not come back, because that wasn't why they were invited. I mean, if they want to have a conversation about that, I can do that. But if we're here to talk about the ethics of nuclear deterrence, and I've got something to say as a Christian moral theologian, they'll listen. The God bit they may or may not want to talk about, but they won't do so on that occasion. So I think as long as we respect the as it were, the integrity of this occasion to discuss an issue in public policy, that's not a problem. And I think if Christian theologians are found to think seriously about an issue and to treat government personnel not as the enemy, but as fellow citizens, they'll find a ready hearing, actually.
Academics in particular, and in general, and maybe theologians in particular, are known for dealing with things at rather abstract levels, kind of meta-ethical levels. Those examples you just offered us seem like very close, kind of fine-grained public policy matters. Is that intentional, or do some of these conversations take place on both levels, or is it important that they take place on both levels?
Well, given the immediate problems facing government personnel, and given the pressure of time, they don't generally have the time to engage in very abstract conversations, unless the relevance of the abstraction to the public policy matter in hand is made quite clear. I mean, it's not that they can't cope, it's just that a conversation that proceeds as most academic moral theological conversations do proceed at an abstract level without relent, it's just not going to interest them, and frankly, why should it? I think the job of a trained moral theologian or moral philosopher who does understand, as it were, the more abstract conceptual hinterland of ethics is to use his knowledge of that in such a fashion as its relevance to the practical matter in hand becomes clear. And I do think, on the one hand, I thoroughly applaud the extent to which a training in Christian ethics nowadays should involve, and usually does involve, a deep immersion in the classic text of the tradition, because we need to learn from our forebears about how to think Christianly about concepts and a moral vision of things. I do feel, however, that often contemporary Christian ethicists are not so skilled in working their way down from those abstractions to deal with practical issues. Okay. And so part of the point of these conversations is to educate Christian ethicists in the complexity and difficulty of making decisions about practical issues of policy.